Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksuranmilitang Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Obeisances to my beloved spiritual master, who, with the ointment of spiritual knowledge, opened my eyes, which were afflicted with cataracts, and thus blinded by the darkness of ignorance. Namaong Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve, Gaudavani Pracharane, Nirvisesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Deshatarane. Obeisances unto him who is situated at the feet of Lord Vishnu, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, and who is thus named A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Obeisances unto you, O servant of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami, because you are preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya, and thus you are delivering the Western world from impersonalism and voidism. So to begin, there were two poems that Prabhupada composed when he arrived in America, when he was on the Jaladuta boat, and he first arrived in Boston Harbor. So Prabhupada wrote two beautiful poems. First one, Prayer unto the Lotus Feet of Krishna. This one is dated September 13th, 1965. So he had just arrived in America. I emphatically say to you, O brothers, you will obtain your good fortune from the Supreme Lord Krishna only when Srimati Radharani becomes pleased with you. Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is very dear to Lord Gauranga, the son of Mother Sakshi, is unparalleled in his service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. He is that great saintly spiritual master who bestows intense devotion to Krishna at different places throughout the world. By his strong desire, the holy name of Lord Gauranga will be spread throughout all the countries of the Western world, in all the cities, towns, and villages on the earth, from all the oceans, seas, rivers, and streams. Everyone will chant the holy name of Krishna. So the first point here that sticks out to me, Prabhupada is giving, first of all, any credit that's going to happen, he's going to give it to his spiritual master. So that's significant. The poem continues. As the vast mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu conquers all directions, a flood of transcendental ecstasy will certainly cover the land. When all the sinful, miserable living entities become happy, the Vaishnava's desire is then fulfilled. Although my Guru Maharaj ordered me to accomplish this mission, I am not worthy or fit to do it. I am very fallen and insignificant. Therefore, O Lord, now I am begging for your mercy, so that I may become worthy, for you are the wisest and most experienced of all. So here's the next point. Prabhupada is displaying true humility. And this is the mark of a devotee. You can always tell who is a great devotee because they are very, very meek and humble, as Prabhupada is presenting himself here. We see the same thing by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. Every so often, the author, Krishna-Das Kaviraj, will put himself in a very meek, fallen situation description So Prabhupada is also doing that. The poem continues. If you bestow your power by serving the spiritual master, one attains the absolute truth, and thus one's life becomes successful. And if that service is obtained, then one becomes happy and gets your association due to good fortune. Now, in his poem, this poem was originally written in Bengali, and this is the English translation. So now Prabhupada quotes from the Bhagavatam, one of the prayers that Prahlad Maharaj offered to Lord Nrsimha after Lord Nrsimha had killed his father Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad offered more than 40 prayers, so this one is very significant. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant, Narada Muni, kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? So for me personally, this prayer by Prahlad is also so appropriate and applicable for myself. What I really like is when he says here, therefore my first duty is to serve my spiritual master. How could I leave his service? Those of you who know the history, Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada was very well known in Vrindavan as a genuine sadhu. He was very much respected in the Vrindavan community. But still, all Prabhupada could think about in Vrindavan was, I must execute the order of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and go to the West. Although that order came to him originally in 1922 and was reconfirmed several times, he never gave up that desire, that instruction. That's all he could think about in Vrindavan. I must come and execute the order. As he says here, my first duty is to serve him. The poem continues. O Lord Krishna, you are my eternal companion. Forgetting you, I have suffered the kicks of Maya, birth after birth. So if today the chance to meet you occurs again, then I will surely be able to rejoin you. O dear friend, in your company, I will experience great joy once again. In the early morning, I will wander about the cowherder pastures and fields, running and frolicking in the many forests of Vraja. I will roll on the ground in spiritual ecstasy. Oh, when will that day be mine? So in these few sentences, Prabhupada has been revealing how exalted his level of Krishna consciousness is. Today, that remembrance of you came to me in a very nice way. And because I have a great longing, I call to you. I am your eternal servant, and therefore I desire your association so much. O Lord Krishna, except for you, there is no other means of success. So we see here, Prabhupada is calling out to Krishna, and he is revealing how he has only this desire in his heart. He wants to regain association with his beloved Krishna. This prayer is so amazing If you just think about these statements, your appreciation of Prabhupada increases unlimitedly. His humility, his surrender, and his complete devotion to Krishna. So this poem ends, I emphatically say to you, O brothers, you will obtain your good fortune from the Supreme Lord Krishna only when Srimati Radharani becomes pleased with you. Then, a few days later, in September 18th, Prabhupada wrote another poem, Markine Bhagavat Dharma. And I have lectured on this poem many, many times. Every year I have to do a special class on this poem because any one of you who sees yourself as a preacher, and you should see yourself as a preacher, then this poem, this second poem, should give you great impetus, great enthusiasm, great encouragement. If you go over this poem very carefully, you will become super enlivened to preach. Prabhupada is the master teacher. He's the Acharya. By his example, he teaches us everything. So here is this wonderful poem. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Oh boy, Prabhupada does not have a very high estimation of America. It appears that just before writing this, he spent some time in Boston checking and seeing what America was all about. So, look what he says here. Why did you bring me to this terrible place? Prabhupada is a Vrindavan man. He is in the spiritual world. So many people throughout the years, oh, I want to come to America. I want to enjoy. But Prabhupada is saying, why you have brought me to this terrible place? Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied. That is definitely America. I'm sure you've come across so many Americanos. This is exactly how they think. They think themselves very happy and satisfied. But you, because you have Krishna consciousness, you can see through all their nonsense. You know there in Texas what it's like, what they're doing on the weekends. You know very well, right? And this is the problem. They think themselves. Therefore, they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. But you do. Don't ever lose that taste. Don't lose your taste for the message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. So Prabhupada is understanding this is quite a task that his spiritual master and Krishna have put him in. He can see. Now look at this. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. So yes, on one hand, Prabhupada is seeing this is a most daunting task, but his faith in Krishna and Krishna's mercy, anything can be possible. You are the most expert mystic. Last statement of Bhagavad Gita says the same thing. The master of all mystics is Krishna. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? O Lord, I am simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. So for preachers, anybody who's a preacher, this is the key right here. Don't think it's because of you and your abilities. No. Your effectiveness as a preacher is all because Krishna empowers you. That is what it comes about. Not your so-called expertise. I am simply praying for your mercy. So when you are going out to preach, remember, pray like that. My Lord, I am praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them. Because preaching is a heart-to-heart exchange. So when somebody sees that you are sincere and that you are following, that purity is what changes them. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. So I need to explain that, because it sounds like Krishna is being very vindictive, that he's sending the conditioned souls to the material world to suffer. No. There's a very brilliant purport in the 2nd canto, chapter 9, verse 1. Mark that down. 2nd canto, chapter 9, verse 1. Prabhupada explains, Krishna, as it says here, they have come under the control by your will, but the first move was made by the jiva, was made by the living entity. As Prabhupada teaches repeatedly throughout his books, originally we were in the spiritual world with Krishna or one of his expansions. Prabhupada preaches that repeatedly. We made the first decision to want to be independent. Not that Krishna indiscriminately said, get out of here. No, that's not Krishna. We indicated to Krishna, I want to be you. I want to imitate you. I want to be the center of attention. Here in spiritual world, everybody's chanting, I want people to chant my name. So we made the first move, and then subsequently Krishna says, oh, okay, but you cannot imitate me here in my abode. I have to create a playpen. It's called Austin, Texas. Now you go to Austin and play. Try to be God. Try to enjoy like me. Go ahead. See what it's like. So we made the first move. So it's like, if you like, by your will, they can also, yes, you cannot become freed from the clutches of illusion until Krishna gives the sanction. And there's more about that coming. I wish that you may deliver them. So see, here's the other part of a preacher. The preacher's only concern, I want Krishna, I want you to deliver this fallen conditioned soul. That's how a preacher thinks. Here I am speaking to this person. Krishna, I want that you deliver, not that I. Who am I? But Krishna, you can do it. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. So in order for somebody to be delivered, they have to understand Krishna's message. That's why we go out and give them the books. It's not a hocus pocus. All right, you are delivered. Wow. No. They have to be delivered by means of the spiritual master. And what does the spiritual master do? Gives them transcendental knowledge. I chanted, Om Ajnana Timirandasya. The spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. What is that knowledge? Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why we give the books. They have to understand Krishna's message. Then they'll be delivered. Now he continues. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation. Yes, Prabhupada explains that. Book, Bhagavatam, and person, Bhagavatam. You see behind me the screen, you see Prabhupada chanting. Looks like it's somewhere in India, maybe Vrindavan. So, he is the person Bhagavatam, and there is the book Bhagavatam. And if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral, not oral, oral reception, then he or she will be able to understand your message. So, sometimes people ask the question, how was Prabhupada able to start this movement with all the hippies? What was their qualification? They were intoxicated, they were having illicit sex. This is America, the land of meat eaters and drunkards. Malachistan is America. So how was Prabhupada able to convince these Malacha Yavanas to become devotees? Because they had one qualification. They would sit and listen to Prabhupada. And simply because they allowed themselves to hear, and Prabhupada's purity convinced them, as well as the knowledge, then they decided to become devotees, like in my case. By reading 6 chapters of Krishna book, after Krishna killed Putana, I closed the book. All right, I'm joining Prabhupada's army. Sign me up. That's how powerful Prabhupada's books are. Let's continue. One will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. This is why we chant Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Everything begins from this. I'm going to speak after this. I'm going to speak about this. But for now, just remember, everything starts from this. You don't do this, you're not going to go anywhere. This. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. We have to get rid of the inauspiciousness in the heart. And this is how you do it. But how will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? For I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. See the Vaishnava mentality. Lower than the low. Lord, what does Lord Chaitanya teach us? Lower than the blade of grass. We're supposed to wear that around our neck for constant remembrance. As Prabhupada says here, I am unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Yes, all credit goes to Guru and Krishna. When they empower us, then we can do amazing things. That's another secret of preaching. You get empowered by worshiping your spiritual master and executing and repeating the message of Krishna. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as your like. Same thing Krishna told Arjuna. You fight this war, don't worry about victory or defeat, success or failure. That is not in your hand. You just execute your duty. Same way for preachers. Don't be attached to the result. The result is not up to you. That's up to Guru and Krishna. You just do your duty and preach. Now this next one is how I have tried to do my preaching for the past 25 plus years. This has been my meditation. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. I can simply repeat your message. That is the secret, as far as I'm concerned. That is the secret of success. Repeat Krishna's message. Don't change Krishna's message. Repeat Krishna's message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. So that's the art of preaching. The art is to say it in such a way that it becomes effective. I'll give you a very practical example. Say I want my wife to cook something for me or do something. If I go like this, "Hey you, come over here," she's not going to be very responsive. But if I say, "Oh Davy, you're so wonderful, you're so nice, could you please," just like right now she's cooking, because after the class I'm going to take prasad. So preaching is an art. How you deliver the medicine, that's what makes you an effective preacher. You learn how to give the medicine. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel engladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. Prabhupada knows very well the power of Krishna's message. O Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. This is called full surrender. This is voluntary full surrender. The puppet has no independent, the puppet just says, "Let the puppeteer move me." So that's the devotee's attitude. Krishna, I am a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. O Lord, make me dance as you like. So when you go out preaching, you're dancing. And allow Krishna to move you accordingly. The final statement of this poem: I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. Once again, I emphasize this. How do you get strong faith in the holy name of Krishna? By doing japa every day. You get faith by doing it. Yes, you should also read about the holy name. Learn everything there is to know about chanting. Then you will, but you also have to chant. That will give you strong faith in the holy name. I have been designated as Bhakti Vedanta, and now if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. So every year I have to read that poem so that I get enthused, enlivened, and feel encouragement. So now I told you that I would speak more about the importance of this. So there is one purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which I consider to be, for myself, the most important purport. The section is Lord Chaitanya is instructing Sanatan Goswami on the science of Krishna consciousness. And the chapter is the process of devotional service. And all of a sudden this verse comes. Smartavyak satatang Vishnur Vismartavyo na jatuchit Sarve vidhi nishedasyur Etayor eva kinkara. Krishna is the origin of Lord Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. So I consider this, now we're going to hear Prabhupada's purport. So for me, this is most important. Prabhupada comments, this verse is a quotation from the Padma Purana. There are many regulative principles in the Shastras and directions given by the spiritual master. These regulative principles should act as servants of the basic principle. That is, one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, one must strictly chant the Hare Krishna mantra 24 hours daily. One may have other duties to perform under the direction of the spiritual master, but one must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds. So this is the first order of the spiritual master. You're going to get many orders from the spiritual master. This one is the first. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we have recommended that the neophyte chant at least 16 rounds. This chanting of 16 rounds is absolutely necessary if one wants to remember Krishna and not forget him. Of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. One may sell books or enlist life members or render some other service, but these duties are not ordinary duties. These duties serve as an impetus for remembering Krishna. When one goes with the Sankirtan party or sells books, he naturally remembers that he is going to sell Krishna's books. In this way, he is remembering Krishna. When one goes to enlist a life member, he talks about Krishna and thereby remembers him. Smartavyak satatang Vishnur vismartavyo najatuchit. The conclusion is that one must act in such a way that he will always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that will make him forget Krishna. These two principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness. I have a few more excerpts I'd like to read to you. So since today is Prabhupada's appearance day, it's always good to remember and remind ourselves the importance of accepting a spiritual master. As Prabhupada said, it's not a fashion. There's science behind it. So here's an excerpt from the Adi Leela. One should always remember that a person who is reluctant to accept a spiritual master and be initiated is sure to be baffled in one's endeavor to go back to Godhead. One who is not properly initiated may present themselves as a great devotee, but in fact, he or she is sure to encounter many stumbling blocks on one's path of progress towards spiritual realization, with the result that one must continue one's term of material existence without relief. Such a helpless person is compared to a ship without a rudder, for such a ship can never reach its destination. It is imperative, therefore, that one accept a spiritual master if one at all desires to gain the favor of the Lord. The service of the spiritual master is essential. If there's no chance to serve the spiritual master directly, a devotee should serve him by remembering his instructions. I got one instruction from Srila Prabhupada directly, and I'll never forget it. It was in March of 1975 in Atlanta. Prabhupada was giving the Sunday Feast lecture. I was a brahmachari. I was 25 years old. So when it came time for questions and answers, I raised my hand. Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? Now, the reason why I asked that question is because in those days, all you were being told in the temple, go out on Sankirtan, go out and distribute books. Just go out and that's all you heard all day long. So I wanted to see what Prabhupada would say, because I'm a troublemaker. So I said, Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? And what did he say? When you love Krishna. Everybody was shocked. Everybody thought for sure he would say, when you distribute my books. That's not what he said. He said, when you love Krishna. So that's the instruction I've been given by my spiritual master. I must learn how to love Krishna. And as I've been saying, this is where it starts. If I don't do this, don't think about loving Krishna. There is no difference between the spiritual master's instruction and the spiritual master himself. In his absence, therefore, his words of direction should be the pride of the disciple. If one thinks that he is above consulting anyone else, including a spiritual master, such a person is at once an offender at the lotus feet of the Lord. And such an offender can never go back to Godhead. It is imperative that a serious person accept a bona fide spiritual master in terms of the Shastric injunctions. One should simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. We have another one. We have time. So this is furthermore in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela. So this is Krishna-Das Kaviraj. According to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. So every morning we sing, Sakshad Harit Vena Samasta Shastra Ruktasta Tabhav Yata Eva Sadbi Kintu Praboya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. So that verse says the same thing. Sakshad Harit Vena. He's non-different from Hari. Purport. The relationship of a disciple with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. A spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the personality of Godhead. But the disciple must look upon the spiritual master as the manifested representative of Godhead. And I have time for one more. So this is in that same chapter, chapter 1 of the Adi Leela. Krishna-Das Kaviraj now quotes from the Bhagavatam. Acharyang mang vijaniyan navamanyeta karhichit namartya buddhasuyeta sarva deva mayo guru. I love that line. Sarva deva mayo guru. I love that line. One should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy the spiritual master, thinking him to be an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. That's the meaning of Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. The Acharya is the representative of all the demigods. So here's how we all have this experience. So many times Indian people come to our temples, ISKCON temples. Why don't you have deities of Durga Devi, Shiva, Ganesh, this? Why don't you? Here's why. Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. Here's Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasa. He is the representative of all the demigods. Bas, finish. You just worship Srila Prabhupada. All the devatas are taken care of. That's my answer. Yes, there he is, Prabhupada. Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the 4 social and spiritual orders of society. The Lord was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. The spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. No, the spiritual master is like a parent, for without the attentive service of the parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or transcendental professor of spiritual science. The Manu Samhita explains the duties of the Acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti, the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to the spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus one is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony, and after this samskar, or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born as Sudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmin if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayu Purana, the Acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all Vedic literatures, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches the disciples to act in the same way. Only out of immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of the Acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. The spiritual master is the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. I'll repeat that. The spiritual master is the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. The real Vaishnava philosophy is known as Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. I think I will end here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.